Bert Breer is the senior NFL reporter and lead content strategist for the MMQB. Getting down to business with Bert Breer is presented by Bentley University, where good business begins and leaders come to learn. All right, Bert, thank you for joining us in studio. It's very exciting.
Been a couple weeks, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm glad to have you back. Robert Kraft did not make the Hall of Fame. The 13th year that he's not made the Hall of Fame. He's 83.
Yeah.
He wants to get in while he is still living, which hopefully will be for a long time. Ralph Hay, who had was from
And I'll be honest, you guys.
That was my first question.
You don't know many people.
You know more about football than anyone I know. Did you know the name Ralph Hay?
No.
Wow. What does that tell you?
Well, who did they elect last year instead of?
I mean, it's almost like I don't know. Sometimes with these things, it's almost like
I showed a booby. I lifted up my skirt and showed him my nipple.
And look, like if this is some guy like we'd never heard of who if this
Go ahead, boy. Rumble your mouth about my Mr. Hay. Learn his name. Put respect on his name.
Did you hear this before you came in, the last segment? You didn't hear this part?
This is Miss Haskins, Ralph Hay's secretary.
This is Ralph Hay's
I'm Miss
secretary.
Haskins, Ralph Hay's secretary.
She worked for him for many years, and she said he was
In 1918!
a wonderful family man and very loving.
In his own way.
He was a lover.
Ralph Hay.
Ralph Hay in his own way. That's how I got my lay.
Guys, this is like the period of time too when the first name Ralph was very
Not for 9
popular.
months after Mr. Hay.
You don't see too many Ralphs anymore.
No, you don't see a lot of Ralphs.
But there was a period of time, like I feel like our grandfathers probably
Ralph
like that
Wilson.
period of time. Yeah.
You don't see a lot of Hildegards, Helgas,
Bertha.
Bertha. There's a lot of names that don't exist anymore. Okay, so why is Robert Kraft not getting it, in your opinion, and who you talk to? I'm sure you've talked to people.
Yeah,
in the past
I mean,
about it.
I have to think at this point. And look, like if you want to go back over the timeline of it, there was sort of this like period where they started to put owners in, and I think Robert was probably in line after Jerry Jones, but then with Pat Bowlen, the Broncos owner, there was the push to get him in before he passed because he had Alzheimer's, right? Like so. They put Pat Bowlen in, and then the timing for Robert Kraft of the Orchids of Asia thing couldn't have been worse. And I understood like not putting him in right after that because I think the optics of it would have been bad. But they've changed the rules now 15 times on how they do this, and
The separating of the contributors from the coaches should have been
what got him in because
Yes.
I actually was of the opinion that Mike Shanahan should get in before he does. I always feel like coaches and players should get in before owners. Like I that's just my philosophical feeling on it. I thought like when I looked at the contributors list last year, I'm like, it's not even close. Mike Shanahan's the name that should get in. And the reason I felt that way is because he won 2 Super Bowls. He took 2 different franchises to the playoffs, and his offense is legitimately being run by half the NFL now. Mm-hmm. So, like, your impact doesn't get much bigger than that. That said, now that that's separate, I mean, this is weird because this one, like, if Ralph Hay was like 101 years old and just hanging on, and they put it like, then maybe like even if I hadn't heard of him, I would understand it.
He's been dead 80 years, Bert.
I know, and that's what I'm saying. Is like if there was like some huge rush to get like you would understand it if he was like
Sure.
97
But that's
years
not
old
the
and
case.
just hanging on. This one I don't really understand. And there's this period of pro football that like we all respect what they did back then, but it was not what the NFL is now. You know what I mean? Like this is just a little
Okay, but that explains how you don't know him, but why is Robert Kraft not getting in? He wants to get in so badly. Why is he not getting in?
because he wants to get in so badly.
Exactly. That's right. You can't. That's a life lesson. You can't beg people to let you into the party. It's not. It comes off as desperate.
Yeah, and I think a big piece of it is like they just don't want people campaigning to get in, and you had the Don Van Natta story, which I don't know if that really helped either. Like the timing of that drops right around when they're going to vote. And
The what story?
the Don Van Natta story, the big story was it the summer? It was over the summer, right?
I believe so.
Or early September, maybe when Don Van Natta, who's done all the stories with Seth Wickersham. Did this story? There was a specific ESPN story. Specifically
about how
him
Stacey
trying to-
James was trying to get in.
Sending
yeah.
Stacey out and sending cards and folders.
I
to
like that you
everybody.
both. I like that John remembered the author of the story's name. That's
Yes.
good. That's
Well, I
well,
thought you guys might remember it because he's done a lot of Patriot stories over the last 10 years. So.
You're overestimating us. Very much overestimating us. So basically, the
But
guy.
I could pull up the contributor category, and it's not just Robert. I could probably pick out 5 other names that would go
Right.
in ahead of Ralph Hay.
Okay, so what is
Who
the
I legitimately first heard of when I read the story about Robert not getting in.
what is the process then? Okay, so there's 50 guys and they're all in like a ballroom.
No, so like this, there's a 9-man committee that selects this from the contributor. Like, so this is like a seniors committee or whatever. The 9-man committee selects the contributor candidate, and then that contributor candidate goes to be rubber stamped by the 50 Hall voters.
Yeah, Ralph Hay isn't in yet. He has to go for consideration by this other group.
Yeah.
You in, Ralph?
His secretary.
Yep.
Ralph, you in there? I can't feel nothing.
The music's killing me.
I'll take your word for it, Ralph. Just be quick. You have a 1 o'clock appointment.
With who?
I just have this picture in my head. I just have this picture in my head of like
Some muckraking journalist. With who?
I have this picture in my head of like black and white footage of like a locomotive. Like
Everyone walking around quickly. Yeah. You know?
Mr. Hay, there's someone tied me to the railroad tracks. He's got a pencil-thin mustache.
Snidely whiplash.
All right, so
okay, so but I mean,
all right, but this is really, and Fred, I get it. It's funny and it's amusing that there's this group of guys that are like, he wants in here so bad, we're not going to let him in.
Well, so
but at what point, Bert, do they have a responsibility? Well, listen, let me ask my question. What point do they have a responsibility to like this Hall of Fame, whatever it is, to actually represent what the Hall of Fame is supposed to be? Shouldn't it be something that people, A, gravitate toward, and B, have some interest in? Because no one's interested in Ralph Hay. But the Robert Kraft thing, it's like, does he deserve an induction? Yes. Do people know who he is? Yes. Would it actually lend some credibility to the Hall of Fame? Well, they would argue that his scandals would probably hurt it, but no, of course not. He deserves to be in. So what's the point of keeping him out?
I'd say like the.
Or what's the justification?
So I think like the perception, publicity part of it matters less because they're going to get that from the modern era candidates anyway. Like if Terrell Suggs goes in, it doesn't like. It doesn't matter, like if Ralph Hay or Robert Kraft
what
goes
owner
in.
or contributor gets in.
Right.
Okay,
The ex players, the ex players are always going to be the ones that are the stars of the show on Hall of Fame weekend. I look at like I'm looking down the list now, and I'm reading Ralph Hay. So it said in the ESPN story, they called him the co-founder of the NFL. I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
A founding father.
Okay, so but then I'm reading the bio. This is from the Hall of Fame website. Like who made it through the contributor round, which is like the 25 contributor finalists. Ralph Hay, owner of the Canton Bulldogs from 1918 to 1922. So he only owned he only owned the team for 4 years, and hosted the NFL's formational meeting in his automobile dealership
Piece
in
with two
downtown
backs
Canton.
formation.
Their formational meeting.
This Mr. Hay's a devil's threesome.
So he owned the team for 4 years. Like that's it. Like,
And he had a meeting at his car dealership.
yeah. So hosting that meeting got him in the Hall of Fame.
Yes,
100 years later.
So what it is now is their only reason for keeping Robert Kraft out is Robert Kraft wants in.
I want to find a picture of Ralph Hay.
He's got a cigar.
Oh my God,
He's got a cigar. Yeah, the one pic.
He does look
the
like
one dogger
he
type
does
that
look,
was
he does
taken.
look like a car salesman from the 1920s.
Look at my son.
Can I interest you? Can I interest you in this airflow?
Yeah, I was going to say,
I think we're talking Model T Ford at this point.
Yeah.
they offer big back seats in the cars at Mr. Hayes' dealership.
Oh, I could never enter the car with Mr. Hayes.
Oh, you weren't allowed in the car?
Women weren't allowed in the car.
Oh, there he is with
that's
Jim
right.
Thorpe.
Yeah.
Oh, Jimmy Thorpe.
No.
Good run like
I
a
grabbed those keys more than once. It's you and I, Mr. Thorpe.
Wait a minute.
Let's go.
Mr. Hay didn't ask you to do that, though. That was something you did of your own volition.
Yeah, orgies. Fun. That's in roaring 20s orgies. Whee! My hoop skirt would be above my ears.
Hoop skirt?
Yeah.
think
Hoop
so.
skirts aren't fun.
No, well, I don't think there's a 20s anyway.
Sure.
All right, so Robert Kraft not getting in.
All right, very good.
I mean, I think it's like, I don't know. It just, there's a point where I understood if you're pushing too hard and and paying a price for that. This is he
Hurt your back, Mr. Hayes.
born in Canton, died in Canton,
Put on your harness.
died at 53 years old.
Yeah.
Formed the American Professional Football Conference in 1920, which would become the NFL.
True.
The meeting
Next.
actually happened in his showroom, not just in the dealership, having them in a
Oh.
showroom.
Right next to the Model T
aquarium.
Ford.
Well, you know what? Now you've convinced
Yeah.
me he belongs. You know what? After you read it the third time, now I'm convinced he should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame above everyone else, including Robert Kraft.
I could
I didn't know
just
about
see-
the I didn't know about the car dealership showroom meeting, but okay.
Just see
Put him
RKK
in.
sitting
So
in
all the
office.
fans could watch from the outside because, you know, the showroom's usually all glass.
It was
Yeah.
an aquarium of sex, he would call it. And you are my fish, Hazel.
Hazel Haskins.
I thought I said Hazel already. Haskins, let's stick with that.
If you like that clip, and how could you not? Check out more videos from Toucher and Hardy here. Point slightly up and to the left. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. Point slightly down and to the left. And for the latest from the Sports Hub, download at 985thesportshub.com.